What's up, nerds? My name is Jeremy Nathaniel Akers, and I want to talk to you about one of the most challenging and important liberating structures in the catalog. What, so what, now what? Now, I want to apologize for writing this backwards. Us here in the Western English speaking world write from left to right and top to bottom. But in this instance, it makes sense to be consistent and work from bottom up. We are going to go up the ladder of inference with what, so what, now what. Real quickly, to give the nerds what they want, what, so what, now what? What does it consist of? It is a structure often used and associated with debriefing, and it helps us to make sense. And it does that by keeping our conversations organized and tidy. That is how it's going to help us reduce arguments once more, by keeping the conversation organized. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take 1 minute in silent reflection and think about what did we see, hear, and notice, and really focusing on this aspect of salience, what stood out, what seemed remarkable in our observation. Just like I said, 1 minute silent reflection, then get into your small subgroup of 5 plus or minus 2. Take 10 minutes to just try and trade thoughts on what we factually noticed. And then come together with your entire group for a few minutes and see if you make sure you got a full picture of what everybody noticed in this space. Sorry, it's really late. I'm fucking tired. Deal with it. After that, same fucking vibe. 1 minute silent reflection. What is the meaning, significance, and impact? What is the inference of those salient observations? So, of the things we noticed, what is the meaning, significance, and impact of those? 1 minute silent reflection, 10 minutes in small groups, just a few minutes in the all space, and then we move on to now what? Now, what should we do as a result of the significance, impact, and meaning of the things that stood out and seemed salient? What action do we take as a result? 45 minutes or so. Hey, you're flying. We have now got a shared basis of reality. We can get the fuck to work. But I said that this looks so simple. That's right. It's so extraordinarily simple. Why did I say that it was so hard and so challenging, so tricky? What makes it something so simple, so important? That has to do with the fact that most communication is pretty fucked. Because here we are, even when we're standing right next to each other, and when we see the same, object, it already has different meaning for us. So our inference, of course, of what we have seen is headed in totally different vectors, leading to very different conclusions in the now what space. Sometimes we find ourselves in strange bedfellows. So we see different things. Different things stand out to different people for different reasons. And different conclusions come up and seem logical to us as a result. And most of the time, when we're in our conversations, when we're in unstructured group discussions especially, conversations jump all over the place. Somebody suggests an action, and then somebody supports that action with an observation that they made that they think supports it. Somebody disputes that observation by saying something else is more significant, and that leads to a different action. So somebody else says, no, but I saw something else, something significant here that supports that action. And this person says, yeah, but I know, even though we saw that thing, I'm way over here in that action space. We just fucking move up and down these fucking ladders all over the place. And it's just fucking exhausting because the information basically gets fucking just chopped up. We lose all connections to it, and we just have these separate data points that are pretty much fucking useless without those threads of connection that provide significance, that provide coherence, actually, to the information. So a lot of arguments happen. I've talked about how it's important to both work with an agenda and to use interaction patterns that increase the information throughput. The challenge, even with those two very extraordinarily powerful interventions, is that if your information processing still sucks and you're just giving yourself those random data points, it's really hard to stitch things together. So what, now what is going to help us make sense and get coherence out of that. And that changes the dynamic between, all of this sort of existing below the waterline, right? The iceberg model. This is all the shit that's underneath the waterline. We only see this. We only see this. We only see the yeah, but. We only see the visible argument. But the basis upon which both players stand is pretty much invisible to one another without the coherence of what, so what, now what. We're arguing about different information, different insights, different ideas. We're getting stuck in this pattern of yeah, but, and, being quite skeptical and shitty to each other and getting real fucking pissed off for good reason, because this shit is exhausting. So what do? Well, we build up our conversation one block at a time. We start with the block of what, which is going to help us focus our attention on salient facts and data. Observable reality, what we saw, what we heard, what we noticed. So once more, getting back to the structure, we set the stage, we use a talking object, which is a very, very good idea if you have groups in the closer to 7 category. Describe the process of what, so what, now what. Offer them the visual of these ladders of inference, or the building blocks, as I like to refer to them. And say, we're going to work up one of these one step at a time. I want you to stick with the step that we're on right now. Action always comes at the end. We're going to get there. Park it for now and just stay where we're at. And see if that action that makes sense immediately still makes sense once you've collected more information about what the fuck is going on. Start with what? What happened? What did you see, hear, or notice? What facts and observable and observations stood out? That is the nature of salience. Take just 1 minute in silent reflection, a few minutes in a small group, and just a couple minutes to go around all the groups and collect all the information. Documentation is really, really important for this stuff, because we're literally taking an inventory about what the group saw and thought. So it's a good time. So this is how we avoid arguments. After then, and only then, after we've collected all the salient observations, we get into our so what. We get into our impact, our feelings, our emotions, the meaning, significant assumptions, conclusions, hypotheses, or the big category that we call inference. Inference. It's not an observation, but we can infer from that observation. So what? Again, 1 minute silent reflection, few minutes small groups, coming around to the all, around the question of so what? Why is that stuff that we noticed in the what important? What's the impact of those observations? What patterns and conclusions are emerging? What hypotheses can we make? What assumptions seem safe? Share and collect in your all space. Use a shared doc, use a Miro board, ask somebody to scribe on a flip over, whatever. Post-it notes, index cards, etc. Then, and only then, after we have collected all of the relevant observations And all of the inference do we get in to the now what? Action comes at the end. And now what is very simple. Now what actions make sense? Now that we finally collected all the information, what ideas do we got on the table? I am the hugest fan you can imagine of 15% solutions with no additional time, resources, or energy or authority. What can we do with what is just available on hand? What can I cook with only what is already in the kitchen? What can I do between now and next Friday? Those are 15% solutions. Small steps. Get it done. It's not going to surprise you. 1 minute silent reflection, few minutes in small groups, some amount of time to go all the way around the group. You'll notice that especially in the now what phase, that's going to take some more time to discuss about this stuff. You're going to have a generative phase as you discuss proposals of adding. Here is when your governance is going to need, it's going to have to pull you through. Liberating structures don't include a lot of governance patterns. And by governance, I mean, deciding together. Liberating structures encourages individuals to take action independently of one another. So coordinated action might be a challenge. I would say, I think that's a feature and not a bug. I think generally coordinated action is weaker action. That is motivated often because of incentive landscapes, carrots and sticks, whereas individual action tends to be intrinsic and therefore meaningful to someone. And if it's meaningful to them, let them go do their own goddamn thing. So I think distributed action, a lot of action from a lot of different people, is actually a higher probability win than a coordinated action that is even when there's quote-unquote buy-in. But liberating structures helps us with a governance process by organizing our conversation and helping us to avoid the avoidable disagreements by having a coherent discussion and making sure that everybody knows how those fucking building blocks stack together. But yeah, here and now what, you might need some governance to decide and add additional ideas. That takes some more time. So that's what, so what, now what. If you can make transparent or clear to everyone what stack of inference you are standing upon, everything about your perspective will become much more readily available. That availability times basically everyone is a really good time for us to get where we're all coming from, and in order to have some sense of, oh, this is how shit fits together. This is why you think that, and why I think this. That space just helps so much communication. For you to know what is in my heart and mind, and for me to know what is in your map of reality, just means that we can mesh those things together and find the appropriate relationship so much easier. One of the reasons that what, so what, now what is actually so challenging is that most humans really, really want to jump straight to the action that we know comes at the end. It's going to take a Herculean amount of energy the first time you do what, so what, now what, to keep the group down, low on the stack, low on the ladder. Like, you might have to use an actual physical parking lot for the comments and ideas to move things into the appropriate space. You might actually, You might actually need to have this sheet out, and as people are sort of sharing out into the middle, into the all space, you might have to just move that thing. Like, oh, yep, that's more of a so what, that's more of a now what. My favorite thing is to use what so what now what when I'm taking notes about other people's conversations or about the conversations we're having as a group. When I'm acting as scribe, for me to automatically sort information into what so what now what means that I can very effectively articulate these. This is the story of this idea. This is where it comes from. We have this observation, that inference, therefore, right? That act of crafting the lore and giving context to ideas, once more, helps us figure out where we're coming from. With the knowledge of where we're coming from, it's much easier to get on board. It's very, very important to people. Even if we agree with the action, if we sense that the place it's coming from is question markable, we'll get obsessed with that question mark. We'll go, hey, wait a minute. This is different. This seems like it's a different thing. It's coming from a different place than where I'm coming from. Is that right? Is that true? We'll really work hard to try and pin that down. It's a shitty vibe. Very shitty vibe. So stay low on the ladder. Work one step at a time. Action comes all the way at the end. That is my take on what, so what, now what. Once you get the pattern of what, so what, now what ingrained in your bones and being, you will see it every motherfucking where. What, so what, now what is like the move that made the scientific revolution possible. And, I've got as much of an axe to grind with Cartesian dualism as anybody. But the pattern that is what, so what, now what is sage wisdom. So it will help you to articulate clearly, and it will help you to interpret information clearer. Like when I can go, hey, we were talking here, and I think I got your idea, and I think I got what you saw, but there's something here in the middle that I feel like I'm missing, that if you can help me clue in, I might be able to support your idea a little bit better. Right? Game changer, nerds. Absolute game changer. At any rate, my name's Jeremy Akers, Jeremy Nathaniel Akers. Thanks for your time, attention, and energy. And what, so what, now what 'em, motherfuckers.